Keith, Richburg is in Beijing tonight, where there's a leadership transition of their own that I want to talk about. But first, what was the Chinese reaction to the election Tuesday?
Well, it was probably, more relief than anything else. I was, talking to a few people ahead of time, and Chinese here were really intensely following it, and they were a bit unnerved, concerned by the anti-China tone that the debate had taken, particularly on the side of Mitt Romney, the Republican nominee, who said he would label China a currency manipulator on his first day of office and had some pretty tough words about China stealing intellectual property, hacking into American computers, taking American jobs. So there was a bit of relief that Obama won. The Chinese have invested a lot in this relationship over the last 4 years. The incoming president has gone to Washington and met with President Obama. So among other things, the Chinese value stability, and Obama's reelection for them means stability, continuation of the relationship.
Yeah, you mentioned that incoming president. China, basically the leaders serve more or less de facto 10-year terms, and Hu Jintao this week is turning over power. To whom, and how does that process work, and what do we know about who the new people will be?
Yeah, it's a two-step process. The leading authority here is the Communist Party, and so the top job is Secretary General of the party. So Hu Jintao, who's been in the top job for the last 10 years, will turn over within the next week or so the title of Secretary General of the Communist Party. And then sometime later in next year, around March, he'll also turn over the less important title of President of China. And he's going to turn it over to his vice president, Xi Jinping. She was actually picked as vice president 5 years ago, and so he's really been the heir apparent. Everybody expected him to take over. There were some question marks about a year or two ago as to whether there was a backroom intrigue going on that he might not get the top job. That was all settled, so it looks like it's going on track.
One of the things the Chinese leadership is dealing with right now is big popular resentment towards corruption, which is not a new issue at all, but it's mainly been a regional kind of middle management concern. But now China's number two exposed, Wen Jiabao, in a New York Times story, having nearly $3 billion in assets out of almost nowhere. How are they dealing with corruption, and what is the response, the official response to all this?
Well, this has been a huge issue now with not just the leaders themselves, and in fact, not the leaders, but the family members of the leaders. It's something that they haven't actually quite addressed. They talked a little bit about disclosure, having top leaders disclose their assets, but that doesn't really get to the real problem here, because what happens is these leaders make very little money. Their salaries are quite low. They live in government housing. But the problem is that their children, their extended family, their cousins, their brothers, their sisters get involved in multiple business deals. And in a state-run economy like this, having a brother or sister who's, of a Politburo member on your board of directors instantly gets you state contracts. It gets you all kinds of lucrative benefits here. So they don't really have, or they have not yet publicly addressed this.
I think Americans have trouble understanding how people could accept a system like China's, where the leaders are basically chosen in a back room somewhere without any popular input, other than, people are reading the websites and seeing what people think, but ultimately it's not a democratic process in the way we think of democracy. Is it a system that people are accepting as this transition happens this week?
Well, most people are pretty apolitical and pretty apathetic about this system, because they at the moment, they don't think there's any real possibility that they can change it. They've been putting up with the system for quite a long time. Now, that's not to say that there's sort of widespread hatred or any kind of popular revolt against the system brewing. Quite to the contrary. I mean, the Communist Party's current legitimacy, they won the revolution, which gave them legitimacy to rule. Their current legitimacy, at least for the last 25 years or so, is that they've helped people get rich. See too many people, at least publicly, claiming that they want a complete overthrow of the system. People do value stability, but they do want the system to be more accountable. People want more of a say. They want more environmental controls, and people want to be able to read what they want without censorship. So there are those demands out there, and we see it more and more, especially with the kind of the relative freedom on the internet.
Okay, Keith, thanks a lot.
Thank you.